He stood in front of the entire team, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, You'll never lead. You're backup. You're not even close to leadership material." My heart dropped. Everyone went silent. I wanted to cry, wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just smiled, because deep down, I already knew something he didn't. I had my own plan, one he couldn't see coming. He thought he humiliated me that day. But the real twist, today, he works under me. I never planned to work at East Point Technologies forever, but when I landed that marketing associate role fresh out of college, I was thrilled. A stable job in Austin, decent pay, and a foot in the door of a growing company. It felt like a win. At least, it did in the beginning. Then I met Derek Vaughn. Derek was my direct supervisor, charismatic, confident, sharp-dressed and sharp-tongued. The kind of guy who walked into a room and made everyone snap to attention, not out of respect, but fear. He sized people up within minutes, and I'll never forget how he looked at me during my first week. Like I was invisible. I'd offer ideas in meetings, he'd interrupt. I'd send him campaign concepts, he'd forget to reply. But I kept my head down. I worked twice as hard. I learned the ropes, studied trends, taught myself tools our team didn't even know existed. Still nothing. And then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. One of our senior analysts had dropped out of a product pitch, and Derek needed someone to present the data. I volunteered. I'd prepared the deck, knew the numbers inside out. I was ready. But when I raised my hand, Derek just laughed. In front of the entire room, he leaned back in his chair, smiled that condescending smile of his, and said, "Kayla, you'll never lead. Your backup, support role, that's your lane." The room went dead silent. I could feel my ears burning. My hands clenched under the table, my voice gone. I didn't say a word. I just nodded. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Not anger, not shame, clarity. This wasn't where my story would end. So I did what I'd always done. I got back to work. But not just to do my job. No, I began preparing. I stayed late, even when no one asked me to. I took notes on our projects, on Derek's habits, on who in the company held real influence. I watched, I listened. I started networking during lunch breaks, engineers, HR, even the janitorial staff. Everyone had something to teach me. I didn't just want a promotion. I wanted mastery. I enrolled in a part-time MBA program at UT Austin. Classes at night, spreadsheets by day. My calendar was a war zone of deadlines and caffeine. But I was building something he couldn't see. Meanwhile, Derek kept playing his game, stealing credit, making backhanded compliments. Once, I overheard him telling another manager, "She's sharp, sure, but she doesn't have it, you know." That night, I cried in my car, but I still showed up the next morning. Smile on, shoulders back, because I knew one thing. When someone underestimates you, that's not your weakness. It's your weapon. Months passed. Our company started restructuring. Teams merged, projects shifted, and for the first time, Derek looked unsettled. He wasn't getting the praise he used to. His metrics were slipping. Meanwhile, the campaigns I quietly led were outperforming every benchmark. But did he acknowledge it? Of course not. Instead, he started using my ideas in his own pitches, tweaking a word here, changing a color there, pretending it was his work. I let him. I kept every email, every timestamp, every file. Because while he was busy playing petty games, I was building the receipts, and deep down, I could feel it. My time was coming. The months that followed were brutal. Not because of Derek, but because of the silence. Because I was done asking for permission, done waiting for validation. While he was busy cornering interns in the hallway and boasting about his natural leadership instincts, I was deep in the trenches building something real. At night, I studied business strategy under fluorescent lights. Marketing analytics, behavioral psychology, negotiation. During the day, I applied everything I learned. I'd sit in meetings, listening to Derek drone on, and silently rework his strategies in my head. I knew where they'd fail. I knew what customers were actually saying. I knew what the board wanted, but he didn't care. Because Derek didn't listen. Derek talked, and that's why I knew when the right moment came, I'd be ready. I wasn't just preparing to lead. I was preparing to own. One evening, after a 10-hour workday and a 3-hour MBA lecture, I sat on my apartment floor eating instant noodles, my laptop glowing in the dark. I opened a spreadsheet titled Phase 2. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a plan. Every contact I'd met, every executive I'd impressed, every skill I'd sharpened, it was all in that file. And one name kept showing up in my notes: Maxine Rourke. She was the co-founder of a fast-rising startup, Noventa Analytics. She'd come in once to guest lecture during one of my MBA courses. I had stayed after to ask a question, and something clicked. We exchanged contacts. Weeks later, I sent her a deck I had made for a project at work, just for feedback. She wrote back in 10 minutes. "Kayla, this is brilliant. We need to talk." We set up a meeting. Not an interview, a meeting. I still remember walking into that cafe in downtown Austin running on 4 hours of sleep, my blazer one size too big, heart hammering against my ribs. Maxine didn't waste time. "I've been watching your work," she said. "You're the one doing all the heavy lifting behind that East Point mess, aren't you?" I didn't confirm or deny. She smiled. "Good. Because I'm building a team that doesn't just execute. We disrupt. I want you to lead our marketing division." I almost dropped my coffee. Lead. I had to steady my voice. "What's the timeline?" I asked. She leaned back. "Q1 next year. You'll come in as VP, but I'll tell you something else." She paused. "We're planning to acquire one of East Point's B2B units. And when we do," her eyes twinkled, "you might just get to manage some very familiar faces." I didn't react. But inside, the ground shifted. Derek's unit, his kingdom, was being circled, and I was holding the pen. I gave my notice a week later. Derek called me into his office, tried to fake a casual tone. "Leaving, huh? Well, some people aren't cut out for this pace. Maybe you'll find something easier out there." I smiled. "I'm sure I will." He didn't ask where I was going, because men like Derek never imagine you could end up somewhere better than them. They assume they're the ceiling, but I had already broken through. Fast forward 3 months. Noventa's launch party felt like stepping into a new world. Sleek interiors, bright minds, no egos. We worked, we built, we analyzed market gaps and devoured competitor data. And all the while I watched from a distance as East Point crumbled. Their marketing reports dropped in performance. Their flagship campaign, once my concept, was restructured by Derek and tanked. I didn't smile, but I noted it. Then came the board meeting. Maxine and I stood in front of a panel of investors, pitching the acquisition. "We're not just buying a team," Maxine said. "We're absorbing inefficiencies and reassigning leadership to people who can actually deliver." She turned to me. "Kayla will handle the integration." I nodded. No trembling, no fear. Just calm, because I had earned this. When the deal went through, I was handed a new org chart. I flipped through names: analysts, project managers, designers, and then I saw it. Derek Vaughn, reporting to me. I closed the file and exhaled. The first meeting was set for Monday. Mandatory attendance. Derek would be there. I made no announcement, no heads up. I wanted it to hit like thunder. That morning, I walked into the glass conference room, hair tied back, dark green blazer, folder in hand. The room filled, one by one. Then came Derek. He froze in the doorway. For a moment, I thought he might turn around, but he didn't. He sat third seat to the left, quiet. I started the meeting without looking at him. "Good morning, everyone. As of today, Noventa will be absorbing East Point's B2B branch. I'm overseeing this transition. I expect clear reports and weekly syncs." I paused. Then slowly I turned to Derek. "Derek, you'll lead the preliminary audits on past campaigns. I want them by Friday." His face flushed. He opened his mouth, then closed it, and nodded. I moved on. That was it. No revenge speech. No "I told you so." Just quiet dominance. That night, I walked home through downtown. Lights flickering on wet pavement, a breeze lifting my hair. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt free. Because this wasn't about beating Derek. It was about becoming the kind of leader he never could be. And finally, Monday came and went, and so did the silence. Derek didn't challenge me in that meeting. He didn't pull any of his usual smug grins or veiled insults. He just sat there, diminished. But I knew that wouldn't last. People like Derek, they don't surrender. They plot. So I watched. In the days that followed, I assigned him the kind of work he used to delegate to others. Real work. No fluff. No hiding behind titles. And he struggled. His reports were late. His conclusions shallow. The team started noticing. Whispers traveled down the hallway. Wasn't he their director? Did he really get demoted under her? Didn't he used to act like he ran the whole show? I didn't answer any of it. I didn't need to. The results were speaking for themselves. Meanwhile, my role was expanding fast. Maxine gave me full control of the integration. That meant onboarding, training, rebranding, and restructuring the entire B2B marketing branch. It was chaos, glorious, productive chaos. I stayed in the office till 10 p.m. some nights, whiteboards filled with timelines and strategies, coffee stains on printouts, sleepless eyes, but a focused mind. And Derek, he avoided me, avoided eye contact, avoided one-on-ones, even avoided the break room if he saw me there. But there was one moment I'll never forget. It was a Thursday evening. I was in the elevator, heading down to grab takeout. The doors opened on the 4th floor, and there he was. He hesitated, then stepped in. We stood in silence for a beat. Then he spoke. "I didn't think you'd become this," he said quietly. I didn't look at him. I didn't have to. I just replied, "You never saw me. You only saw what you wanted to see." He didn't say anything after that. The doors opened. I walked out. And I didn't look back. But let me be clear, this wasn't just about him anymore. It never really was. This was about every moment I'd been underestimated. Every sweetheart I'd swallowed. Every great idea I'd watched get stolen. Every raise I didn't get. Every meeting I wasn't invited to. Every title that was handed to someone less qualified just because they were louder, taller, more acceptable. I wasn't just building a career. I was rebuilding myself. One quarter passed, then another. Noventa Analytics exploded. Our campaigns went viral. Client acquisition surged. The board gave Maxine everything she asked for, and she gave me everything I'd earned. I was promoted to Chief Marketing Officer. At 31, I signed my new contract in the same glass conference room where Derek once laughed at me. I left the folder open on the table when I stepped out to grab coffee, knowing he had a meeting there next. And sure enough, when I came back, he was sitting across from it, eyes scanning the header. CMO, it read. He looked up, startled. I didn't break stride. "Afternoon," I said. He muttered something, then lowered his eyes. There was no satisfaction in that moment. No fire, no thrill, just closure. The kind that burns slow, like the last candle in a storm. I thought that would be the end of it. But life had one more twist in store. Maxine called me into her office one morning with an expression I hadn't seen before. Serious, contained. "Derek submitted his resignation," she said. I raised a brow. "Really?" He said it's time for something different, a fresh start. I said nothing. She paused. "But he also left this." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a note, handwritten. "Kayla, you were right. I never saw you. I saw a version of myself I didn't understand, and I took that out on you. I was wrong. I hope someday you'll accept this as an apology, not for forgiveness, but for honesty. D." I folded it slowly. Not because I forgave him, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. That chapter was closed. When Derek walked out of Noventa's doors for the last time, I was in a meeting with a new client. I didn't pause. I didn't watch. Because I wasn't part of his story anymore. He was a footnote in mine. And now, I had bigger things to write. That evening, I stood at my window overlooking Austin's skyline, a glass of wine in hand. My phone buzzed with a dozen unread emails. Partnership offers, event invitations, investor calls. But all I could think about was that first day at East Point. The girl who walked in full of hope only to be told she'd never lead. I wanted to reach back and tell her, "Oh, honey, you won't just lead. You'll build the ladder they never thought you could climb." By the time Derek walked away, I had already outgrown the need for revenge. But the universe, it seems, wasn't quite done. My role as Chief Marketing Officer had opened doors I never imagined. I was invited to keynote panels in New York, consulted on branding strategies in L.A., and even mentored a group of young women entrepreneurs in Dallas. I wasn't just doing the job, I was shaping the narrative. And yet, as the months passed, I found myself drawn not to the spotlight, but to the quiet moments behind it. Early mornings reviewing campaigns with junior staff, late nights testing ad copy with interns, the sound of fingers tapping softly on keyboards, the smell of strong coffee at 2 a.m., That was the real work. The real power. And that's when the next chapter started to write itself. Maxine approached me with a proposition. Noventa's board was looking to spin off a new division, one focused entirely on AI-integrated marketing automation. They wanted someone to lead it, from scratch. She asked if I'd take it. Not as CMO, but as co-founder. I didn't answer right away. I needed time to think, not because I wasn't ready, but because I needed to understand what power meant to me now. It wasn't about status. It was about legacy, about building something that didn't just elevate me, but everyone who came after. I thought of every woman who'd been passed over, every quiet genius who got silenced by someone louder, every leader who never got the title, but carried the weight anyway. So I said yes, and just like that, we launched NovaLead, a standalone venture under the Noventa umbrella, designed to reshape how brands spoke to people. I built the team myself, hand-picked analysts, writers, designers, and coders from backgrounds no one else would have thought to consider. I didn't want resumes soaked in buzzwords. I wanted hunger, grit, integrity. We moved fast. 6 months in, we were landing Fortune 500 clients. Our platform's engagement metrics shattered industry benchmarks. People started calling us the future of ethical marketing. I stayed grounded. Every win was a reminder of how far I'd come. But life, as always, had one more full-circle moment to offer. It was a conference in Chicago, a big one. Hundreds of executives, and I was delivering the closing keynote. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights dimmed and a hush fell over the room. Cameras clicked, screens glowed. My face projected across 3 stories of LED panels. I talked about transformation, trust, technology, but also about truth, about what it meant to lead from a place of quiet power, the kind that doesn't shout to be heard, the kind that doesn't crush to climb. And then, in the crowd front row, 3rd seat from the right, I saw him. Derek. Older, less certain, still wearing expensive suits but not hiding behind them so well anymore. Our eyes met, and for a moment, there was nothing between us. No pain, no pride. Just 2 people no longer circling the same war. When the applause came, it was thunderous. But I didn't look at him again. After the speech, he approached me backstage. "Kayla," he said, extending his hand. I looked at it, then shook it. He smiled, not the old smirk, not the fake charm, a real smile. "You were extraordinary," he said. I didn't see it back then. I nodded. "You weren't supposed to," I said, and that was the end of it. No apology needed, no debt unpaid, just peace. In the car that night, I stared out the window as the city lights blurred into gold streaks. I remembered the girl who once sat at a cubicle, watching her boss take credit for her work. The one who went home and cried in silence. The one who nearly believed the lie that she wasn't enough. I whispered to her across time, "You did good." Because she did. She built something unbreakable. And now, when people looked at my name, they didn't just see a title. They saw a story, a legacy, a ladder built from ashes and rebuilt in stone. And when young women wrote to me asking, "How did you do it?" I told them the truth. I didn't fight to prove I could lead. I built a world where they couldn't deny it. The final chapter didn't arrive with a bang. It arrived with a whisper. It was a quiet Sunday morning in Austin. I was curled up on my balcony, a mug of black coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. The sunrise hit the skyline with a soft orange glow, and for the first time in years, I wasn't racing against time. No pitches to prep, no fires to put out, just peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email from a firm in New York, one of the biggest in the business. They wanted NovaLead to consult on an international campaign. The scope, global brand rebuild. The timeline, immediate. The fee, astronomical. I blinked, smiled. This was it. Not validation, but confirmation. That everything I had built from cubicle dreams to boardroom empires had finally become undeniable. And yet, before I replied, I stood up and walked to the old file cabinet in my home office. Bottom drawer, locked. I pulled out a thin folder labeled East Point. It held the last remnants of who I used to be. Notes I had taken, memos Derek had forgotten to forward, printouts of campaigns that never carried my name. Proof, but I didn't open it. Instead, I took the entire folder and fed it to the shredder. Page by page, strip by strip. The sound was strangely satisfying. Because I didn't need proof anymore. I had become the evidence. NovaLead was thriving. Our ethics-first platform had been adopted by 3 Fortune 100 companies. We weren't just changing ads. We were changing how people trusted them. And I was mentoring a new generation of leaders. One of them, Madison, a brilliant but quiet strategist, once walked into my office with tears in her eyes. "I don't think I'm loud enough for leadership," she said. I smiled, handed her a Post-it, and asked her to read it aloud. It said, "Leadership isn't volume, it's vision." She looked at me, and something shifted, just like it once did in me. That's how the world changes, one whisper of belief at a time. Later that year, NovaLead launched a fellowship for women from underrepresented communities. We gave them mentorship, resources, and most importantly, voice. Not just to rise, but to own. One night, after a long day of filming a documentary feature about our impact, I sat alone in the office. Everyone else had gone home. The city below was buzzing, but in here it was still. I looked around, and I realized this was the room I had always dreamed of sitting in. Not because of the view, not because of the power, but because of the freedom. No one could ever again say to me, "You'll never lead." Because I had redefined what leadership meant. It wasn't barking orders. It wasn't hogging credit. It was showing up, listening, empowering, and leaving a door open behind you so others could walk through. One of my favorite moments came at a charity gala in Dallas. I had just finished giving a talk on inclusive leadership when a woman in her 60s approached me. She said, "I used to work at East Point. Years ago. I saw what Derek did, and I saw you rise. I just wanted to say thank you for proving we weren't crazy." My eyes welled, because that's what silence does. It makes you question your worth. But when one voice rises, others remember their own. That night, I stood outside under the Texas stars and thought, this isn't revenge. This is restoration. A reclamation of every unheard voice, every stifled dream. Every woman who sat in a boardroom and wondered if she deserved to be there. You do. You always did. I didn't rise because I was the loudest. I rose because I refused to disappear. And now my name didn't just open doors. It built them. So here's to the next Kayla out there sitting in the back of the meeting room, heart racing, ideas burning, being told she's not quite ready. I see you, and I'll hold the door. Because someday, they'll say the same thing to you that they once said to me. You'll never lead. And you'll smile, because by then, you already will. And maybe, just maybe, you'll do what I did. You'll reach behind you, you'll lift someone else, and in doing so, you'll become something even greater than a leader. You'll become a legacy. One built not on domination, but on dignity. Not on fear, but on fire. The quiet kind. The kind that never dies. The kind that no matter how many times they try to silence it, rises anyway. Because real leadership isn't about them. It's about you, and what you choose to leave behind.